Chase Madar is joining us. He's an attorney in New York. He's a contributor to the London Review of Books and also author of the book The Passion of Bradley Manning. You can find out more at orbooks.com. Chase, pleasure to speak with you. I think we had so much coverage of Bradley Manning in the immediate aftermath of the Wikileaks scandal, and then we heard Dennis Kucinich was hoping to see him in his jail cell, and then we kind of didn't hear much more about it. So I guess a good starting point is, where is Bradley Manning now, and what's the legal status of what's going on with the investigation?
Well, Private Bradley Manning, who's the alleged source for all the juiciest WikiLeaks, the Iraq war logs, the Afghan war logs, and the State Department cables, he is in Fort Leavenworth Prison in Kansas, and he is in the midst of pretrial hearings right now just to determine when his court-martial will be. Probably in August or September, perhaps even later. And I hate to be a spoiler, I think there's only one possible outcome for this young man, and that is a hefty prison sentence. And I think that's a shame, because I think what Bradley Manning is alleged to have done anyway is a great thing for the world, and especially for us in the United States. Knowing what our government is doing is really not such a terrible thing. I hope that's not an offensive statement.
It's not. No, I mean, I think the thing we have to consider, though, is, and this is not a very good analogy, but for example, we had about a year and a half ago, we had somebody from this the hacking group Anonymous on the show, and they confronted the Westboro Baptist Church, known for their God hates fags slogans, not nice people by any stretch of the imagination. And during that interview, they hacked that website. Now, many people found it funny. Many people agree that the Westboro Baptist Church is an evil organization, etc. But if by the letter of the law something is illegal, even if it serves some purpose, can we really pick and choose? Well, we like the eventual outcome, so let's not charge the person. That opens up a door that might be risky, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and that's an essential question in this case. But we should keep in mind that just because something is illegal doesn't mean that it's wrong. If we look at our own national history here in the United States, look at all the things that have been prohibited by law that we now regret. Look at the institution of slavery, at the Jim Crow laws, at all the laws that enshrined sexism, racism, and homophobia too. Just because something is against the law doesn't mean that it's absolutely wrong. On the other hand, we should only, of course, condone the breaking of law when it's absolutely necessary.
And, you know, I happen to think that it's a great thing, what we found out through these WikiLeaks. I was incredibly surprised when Wolf Blitzer, who presumably is a journalist and wants information, took on this angry demeanor that how dare we find out about these things. Wait a second, Wolf, aren't you a journalist? So I completely understand. I understand. I'm just trying to take this to the kind of logical conclusion. Who should decide whether something that is illegal is okay to do in a particular instance because it serves some greater good? I mean, is it up to Bradley Manning? Will it be up to judges or attorneys? I mean, who really should decide?
Well, Bradley Manning, he made his choice. And he made his choice allegedly, always allegedly, because he has not been convicted of anything. Whoever it was made the choice to leak these documents. And that choice has been made. I think it's a clear violation of the law, too. Now, there are many charges against Bradley Manning. The most serious of the charges, aiding the enemy, is also the most ridiculous. Because in order to make this charge stick, the government is going to have to prove that Bradley Manning had the conscious, specific intent of helping Al-Qaeda. And that is just not going to wash. It will probably crumple on impact at the very beginning of the court-martial, just like so many of the other serious charges levied against whistleblowers have crumpled when they have real exposure to daylight in court in the past few years.
Chase, what do you know now about the conditions where Bradley Manning is being held? Initially, when he was being held, I believe it was in Virginia, there were a lot of allegations that he was really being treated in a way that was not okay. Use whatever adjectives you want to describe what it is. Do we know if that's changed? What are the conditions now?
Yes, we do know. And just to recap, for the first 9 months of Bradley Manning's imprisonment, he was held under the strictest, harshest conditions of solitary confinement. And although the Quantico Marine Corps brig said that this was for his own good, and even President Obama said that this was for Private Manning's own good. We know that this was really not the case. The Briggs' own psychiatrist was saying that there was no medical need whatsoever for this strict solitary confinement. And the Briggs psychiatrist was saying that this young man was not a suicide risk, and an outside psychiatrist brought in also came to the same conclusions. Now, many people have compared this to the way we treat enemy combatants, and it's a popular idea that with Bradley Manning, you have the war on terror coming home to roost, and we're starting to treat Americans like this, or that we were using KGB tactics against this young man. And there's some grain in truth to that. The psychiatric prisons for political dissidents in the Soviet Union had conditions very and disturbingly similar to the way Bradley Manning was treated for 9 months. At the end, Bradley Manning was stripped of all his clothes, deprived of his glasses even, day and night, and had to answer for all his waking hours the question, "Are you okay?" every single 5 minutes when he was awake, which is just terrible. But I think when you step back and look at this, one of the most disturbing things about this case is that Bradley Manning was really just being treated like an American citizen. I don't say that to defend it, but we can't forget that we have between 70,000 and 100,000 American citizens in strict solitary confinement, some kind of long-term isolation right here in the United States. And this usually goes without comment or much protest on the part of intellectuals or media. It's almost invisible, and it shouldn't be.
No question about it. And we've talked about the long-term psychological effect. If you were fine when you went into solitary confinement, it's very possible that the confinement itself leaves you psychologically distressed. So how does this security breach compare to others in history? I mean, in context, is this the biggest in terms of number of documents or classification of documents? Are there other instances significant like this?
Now, one set of leaks that Bradley Manning's are frequently compared to, and I think it's a useful comparison, is Daniel Ellsberg's leaks of the Pentagon Papers in 1970. Daniel Ellsberg, he had been in the Marines. He was a model Marine, first in his class at officer training school, and then he became a defense analyst for the RAND Corporation and doing outsourced Department of Defense work. And when Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers, an in-house Department of Defense collection or analysis of how the Vietnam War had been waged under Presidents Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson, this was a great scandal at the time. 30,000 documents, all of them, every last one of them, ranked top secret, the highest degree of classification. And Ellsberg was put on trial, charged just like Manning is being charged with now, with the Espionage Act of 1917. But that law was never intended to be used against domestic whistleblowers, but that's how it's being used, and with great frequency, by the Obama administration. Now, Ellsberg, he got pretty good treatment, even though he clearly broke the law. He has always admitted that. But there were enough people in the media and in the legal profession and even in the Senate who were so sick of the Vietnam War and so fatigued with it that they were willing to condone what was a clear breach of the law just to get some of the truth out. And that is the main difference between Ellsberg's leaks and Manning's. Ellsberg's leaks were all at the highest rank of classification. Not a single one of Bradley Manning's leaks is at the top secret level of classification. Other than that, there's no legal distinction whatsoever between the two sets of leaks.
I think that's I think that's a good comparison for people to bear in mind, and a great documentary also about Daniel Ellsberg, which I highly recommend. I think is it the most dangerous man in the world? Is that, or in America?
In America, yes. It's a great documentary and a great refresher course on the importance of leaks in American history, because we have a long tradition, particularly in the military, of whistleblowers who have brought honor to our military by being willing to tell the truth straight to the public.
All right, a big and complicated issue. We're going to keep following it. The book is The Passion of Bradley Manning. We've been speaking with attorney Chase Madar. Really a pleasure to speak with you, and we'll have to have you back.
Thank you so much, David.